All right, welcome everybody. This is going to be your hopefully pretty quick, maybe 20-minute overview of section H of test content outline 6 and be our foundation for how to take the goals that we worked on and transition them into actual programs for our clients. So let me see if I can bring up an agenda for today. Beautiful. How about this one? Okay, make it big so we can read it. So what we're going to be covering today is section H on selecting and implementing interventions, planning programs. How do we know we have our target behaviors, we have what we thought were our good goals, but how do we turn a goal into an actual intervention? So these are some things that I want you guys to think about before you come to your group. So number one, what are the steps needed after we receive that referral? Number two, what are the minimum requirements for a protocol? And yes, this will vary based on your stakeholder. A hospital is going to have different requirements than a school is going to have different requirements than a home-based versus corporate versus mom and pop. So there are some givens, and then there are going to be some nuances. I want to make sure we at least have the given. Are there essential pieces? So yes, minimum requirements, and then also making sure we have the meaningful pieces for the protocol. And then in group, we'll be discussing ethics of, well, what if we don't have everything that we were supposed to have? So for starters, I just want to talk about what are those steps, right? I've been trying to really format and organize this and get you guys fluent in this process. So you get a referral. Hey, Jenny, can you go see Jessica? Great. First thing I'm going to do is a pre-assessment screening, right? I'm going to answer those couple of questions. Is this really ABA needed? Are the medical issues ruled out? Am I qualified, competent, trained, available? So that pre-assessment screening, make sure that I am a good candidate to go provide services for this individual. Once we've done that, let's go see the individual. So you do some type of caregiver interview, a parent interview, ask all the questions. What we're looking for is the family's greatest concerns. If I could fix one thing, right? We've talked for an hour, lots of things are on your list, but if I could really move the needle on one thing for you, what would that be? Tantrums when she can't tell us what she wants. Okay, great. That's going to help me target my goals towards a socially valid concern of the family. Then you actually go, next step is do the assessment piece. So often this is in the same session as that interview piece. This can be anything from doing something very structured like enables. It could be something more structured and formal that will help us find the function, like the FAST screening tool. It might be observing and taking ABC data. It might be doing anything related to that specific need, but I'm looking for information that is either going to confirm or deny why this challenge, right? Temper tantrums when she can't tell us what she wants. So I want to test, assess, narrow down, is it a skill deficit? What is it? Is it a skill or a behavioral excess? Too much yelling, screaming, tantruming. What's the function of that? What's it getting her? Okay. So then you've done the screening, you've done the interview, you've done the assessment. The next piece before I even leave is to try and say, okay, mom and dad, teacher, boss, this is what you presented me with. This is what you've told me today. So this is the picture that I'm seeing. Yes, in my observation, I saw her have a temper tantrum, right? A meltdown. And it looked like it was because she wanted that thing and you kept trying to give her this thing. Okay, what did the temper tantrum get her? Well, you just started handing her everything because everybody was frustrated and we wanted her to calm. And so at the end of that little bit of analysis, it looks like, yes, the temper tantrum is related to not being able to tell what she wants, which is the problem because she wants access to that thing. So, how about if, again, I could move the needle on that one thing for you? Let's work on helping her with her communication so that she can access the items that she wants, hoping that then the temper tantrums will decrease. So, we've close out that session with our goals. I get a yes from mom and dad, that would be great. And I say, fantastic. Let's meet again next week, and I will bring back a protocol or a program with some suggestions and ideas for how we're going to work on communication. That's the part that we're going to talk about today. What does that protocol or what does that program look like? And that's section H. Okay. So let's just dive into section H because as we go, we'll talk about minimum requirements and essential pieces. So these section H items develop intervention goals in observable, measurable terms, identify and recommend interventions based on assessment results, scientific evidence, client preferences, contextual fit, which also includes those cultural variables, environmental resources that we've talked about. Select socially valid alternative behaviors to be established. Plan and attempt to mitigate possible unwanted effects when using reinforcement, extinction, or punishment. Plan for and attempt to mitigate possible relapse of the target behavior. So if it's behavior excess and we've worked on this to where the tantrums go away, how do we make sure those tantrums don't show back up again? Our programs should include information so that we're doing data-based decisions about procedural integrity, as well as data-based decisions on the effectiveness of the intervention and need for modification. And our program should include information on collaborating with others. So let's jump into our case study. So here's our case study. Jessica is a 12-year-old female student. Of course, the information has been changed for confidentiality, and she is in a self-contained autism spectrum disorder focused year-round school. She presents with global delays in all areas of functioning. She has been receiving ABA services since early 2013. However, the number and hours designated for direct services and parent training, as well as the educational level of the therapists and interventionists, has really varied widely. At the first assessment, Jessica showed the most significant skill deficits in the area of functional communication. Specifically, she was unable to make her wants and need known to others in a consistent or reliable way. At times, this resulted in challenging behavior, including aggression, property destruction, and elopement, leaving her designated supervised area. Her overall level of functioning was estimated to be about that of a 15-month-old child. So this is Jessica. Again, just quickly to go through the process, we did the pre-assessment with the family, we did the FBA, and we determined these functions, access, and I don't see it. I thought it said access somewhere, access to tangibles. The target behavior was the functional communication was still important to the parents and the stakeholders. And we set a goal because her language skills are still very early learner. We set a goal to use pictures, and I believe 20 or so pictures is what our first milestone number is going to be. So we've done all of that. And so today, again, what we're going to talk about is, so how do we plan that intervention? And planning the intervention will include how to take the data and should include, although it's probably in the behavior plan, how to review or retrain or modify. So Before we jump into what the plan looks like, I want to talk about some essential requirements for a program protocol. And again, these are just um, some real basics, some minimum necessary. So the name of the program, um, those of you that work with kids with IEPs, they may have 12 or 15 goals, 2 or 3 for language, 2 or 3 for um, math, 2 or 3 for or English, all right, grammar, 2 or 3 for math, 3 or 4 for speech and language. Maybe behavioral things to decrease. So what are we going to replace them with? There might be OT goals, all of these goals. Well, let's give our programs names so that when you pull open a child's chart or a file or a school record and we're looking for data, we just have some good, solid, identifiable information available to get us started. Then definitely the name, depending on your stakeholders, if they want a code for HIPAA or FERPA. And then the duration. Is this good for a school year? Is this good for a quarter? Is the data here for a month? So if the data is for a specific amount of period of time, if this intervention is going to be reviewed by the team, then let's put that someplace clearly where we can see this. So it's a reminder for us, oh, March is up. I need to go get an April form. Oh, April's up. I need to go get a May form. Or the quarter is up, I need to do a progress report. So putting the duration that this program is going to be good for. Definitely it has to have the goal on there, materials with those cultural considerations, how and when we're supposed to be collecting data, how and what we're supposed to train with assent and trauma considerations, a task analysis with prompting, maybe even reinforcement. Definitely, this is where those reactive strategies and how to plan for the unwanted effects considerations could go. And then your data collection method and your key. So, and that's minimum necessary. Okay, let's go take a look at a protocol and see if we have all of these parts and pieces. I know there's a lot on the screen, you guys. I don't know how else to do it. Okay, but so let's go through it. Some of those minimum necessary, right? We have Manding program, we have a title, we have our client's name over here, Miss Jessica. We have the company's code, Jess Her, because they want a code there. We have the duration that this program sheet or data sheet is good for, the month of March. We have a goal that we needed. We have the materials so that whoever is going to be running this knows what they're pulling to get ready. We have that task analysis down here, the steps to be run. We have our data sheet down here. So we have a lot of those minimum necessary things. So now let's go back up and see if we can't find the H items. There we go. So this is H1. It says develop intervention goals in observable and measurable terms. So here's my goal for Jessica. Jessica will spontaneously emit 15 different mans in her natural environment independently over 4 consecutive trials. Okay, so do we have enough information? Can I see speaking? Yes, she's either saying it or she's not. It's either something she wants because she grabs it or she doesn't. Spontaneously means no prompting, I guess. No cues from Jenny. I guess that's a repeat with independently over here. How many do we need before we think we can move on to something else? We're going to go for 15. And we want this to be over 4 consecutive trials. So 2 days is not enough. 2 days and then a week later, 2 more days is not enough. Whatever those 4 consecutive trials are, that's what we want to be tracking so that we really know that she can tell us what she wants. Okay, so that's H1. Check. We're doing good. H2, which I believe should be H1, doesn't matter, says identify and recommend interventions based on assessment results, scientific evidence, client preferences, and contextual fit, right? The expertise required for implementing this, any cultural variables, any environmental resources. So that was our conversation we just had on our assessment process and picking goals with the parent, the caregiver, the stakeholders' input. And then my other comment down here is that that idea also covers our materials. Because we do list the materials on here that need to be used during the program. So the therapist, the teacher, the parent are able to make sure they have everything that they need to run the programs. And this will also help us focus on those environmental resources. If the family doesn't have resources, what do we do? If a classroom teacher doesn't have resources, what do we do? If there are cultural considerations in our materials, what do we do? So in my materials over here, it says we're going to use the program page. We're going to have this program page right here. We're going to have the pictures or signed cards of 20 highly favored items or activities. And they should be activities and items that Jessica enjoys doing during the day. And there's a note that says this is a shoes off home and it's okay to work on the floor. Okay, cool. Now I know that we might not be sitting at a table and I need to bring my little slip-on socky thing so that when I come in and my feet are cold that I'm cool with taking off my shoes. Okay, so that was H2. Let's see what else we have. Our next piece here is the data collection methods. So definitely have a clear section of how and when data should be collected. This says staff will record data a minimum of 4 days per week after school. So this is a home program reflective of how many times Jessica requests an item or an activity. You can give her a plus if she requests independently, a minus if she doesn't request at all. No matter what you do, a P if you prompted staff to request, and a 0 if there's just no opportunity to participate today. Maybe she's sick, maybe we're out running around town, maybe there was nothing in the house that she wanted, we're out of all of her favorites. All right, trying to see where my next number is. Okay, not to a number yet. The next thing on here should be your training schedule and setting. Again, if this is in a school, it might be that the speech person does the training. It might be that everybody does the training. So for Jessica, again, it says those minimum of 4 days per week only while at home. So this is not a school program. This is not an in the community program. Staff will initially arrange favored tasks and activities in the home for Jessica to request. We're going to work with the parents and the caregiver to determine how to address the whole deprivation issue so that Jessica is motivated to mand. And a little bit of trauma-informed care and assent. We're going to follow the assent protocol and guidelines, and we're going to pair as needed. So this training schedule and setting is a great place to put any of the trauma-informed information there. Okay, next section, our methods and procedures. So this is H3, that we're going to select socially valid alternative behavior to be established or increased when a target behavior is to be decreased. So manding is the socially valid alternative. And that's what this procedure is going to be about. And as much as possible, I've worked with classrooms where paras change. I've worked with families where one day it's mom, one day it's auntie, one day it's Grams, one day it's dad and the older sister. I've worked in supported living in the community where staff is an ever revolving door. So this list of steps that you guys have practiced writing down in your daily task data sheets should look really familiar, that you have enough information that this program can be technologically reproduced across all of the people, all of the variables that could come into Jessica's life. So staff should have a regular and assigned place to keep cards. Part of that is H5, planning for and attempting to mitigate possible relapse of target behavior. On occasion, that target behavior might show back up again. Well, why is it showing back up? It's showing up because the cards are missing and she still can't talk. And so, boom, she reverts back to the temper tantrum. Okay, so we want to mitigate that by having a regular and assigned place to keep the cards. This also continues that the parent or caregiver should have a backup stash of cards just in case. Then, how are we going to implement the thing? H4, plan for and attempt to mitigate possible unwanted effects when using reinforcement, extinction, and punishment procedures. So, initially, when staff notice that Jessica wants one of the activities, so we're not randomly going up and saying, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? That might get an unwanted effect of punishment. So when she wants something, then boom, we're ready to offer her some picture cards. And they should show her the picture card. Then here's their process. I don't want them to have to remember. That's why in the materials, this program page is supposed to be out whenever they're running this program. So staff, family, teacher, whomever will point to the card and say, oh, do you want the ball? Encourage or prompt Jessica to say or touch the card. We'll accept either. And then give the ball to Jessica. Several times while Jessica's playing with the ball, show her the card and say the name of that toy, object, or food item. So there's a little bit of, we call bombardment, to keep the information going. All right, ball. Oh, you have the ball. Yeah, that's the ball. Wow, you love that ball. There's the ball. You have the ball. And then I'm going to tell them what's coming next, right? Because we're looking for spontaneous and independent. After Jessica is starting to make choices, then the staff can put the cards on a ring or on a ledge on the wall where Jessica can find the cards and search through them for the desired item or card for herself. So we're starting to tell staff what the next step is going to be, but not until she's started making choices already. All right, this is a little bit more of H4, attempting to mitigate possible unwanted effects of our intervention. So I have information for the staff that says, if Jessica walks away during the training, take the card with you and follow her. Spend time pairing as needed to reestablish connection. She may either have lost interest in the ball or she may have lost interest in me. So I'm not going to force the ball on her and I'm not going to force myself on her, but I don't want her to just walk away and perhaps get frustrated. I want staff to follow her and show good things again. Do the pairing process. And then another little piece of H5, plan for and attempt to mitigate possible relapse of the target behavior again. If having the assigned place, if noticing that she does want this now, if that's not enough, and we still see the tantruming again, the self-injury, the aggression, I think she throws things or something. If that related to access to a desired item occurs, block and ensure safety. Then check with parents or staff related to free access to reinforcers and access to the picture cards. So we're going to ensure safety, and then we're going to try and see if we can't figure out why the undesired behavior, the tantrum, is reoccurring. Why is it coming back? And then there's a note here for staff that says signed or verbal requests should also be immediately accepted. So yes, we're looking at using the picture cards, but if she happens to say ball, give her the ball. If she happens to say ball with a sign because she's learned that in years past at school because functional communication has been her primary goal for a long time, we will also take that. And then we're going to record data and beautiful. H6, it says the supervisor or the behavior analyst will monitor staff performance twice per month. So H6 says that we're going to make data-based decisions about procedural integrity. So these are the fidelity check type things. So I've got to come in and actually put eyes on the people implementing this program. This is prescribed twice a month minimally, so that I can say, yeah, we are still maintaining, everybody's doing these, I don't know, I'm guessing 10 steps up here. We're doing these the same way. And if not, then we can retrain. That's H6. Let's see. H7 says, make data-based decisions about the effectiveness of the intervention and the need for modification. So it's beautiful if your instructions, your program sheet is also your data sheet. The more that we can minimize all the parts and pieces, moving parts and pieces, getting lost parts and pieces of any program, then probably the better for the family, the staff, the caregivers. So my data sheet is right here. I'm going to come back to this in just a second so I can finish out H8 that says we will collaborate with others to support and enhance client services. So this little piece here talks about who's involved. If this is in a school, it might talk about who the IEP team is. It might have names for who the consulting behavior analyst or the supervisor is. It might have names of parents, staff, granny, who sometimes does the intervention. And then, because the way that I've used this form, this front page may stay for March, and then I may get a new one in April. Sometimes this becomes a date, and it'll say ISP year, individualized service plan year 2025-2026 or whatever. And this instruction page stays in the binder until we don't need it anymore. And there will be a stack of 2 or 3 or 4 data sheets in case one gets lost, and they come in here and they can write the month in here and say, oh, we're going to work on this in March of 2025. So they update this separate page. You might print front and back. That's beautiful. However it works, you just have to consider, what do I want on my data sheet so that it doesn't get lost? And I don't even have a client name on the second page, so I might need to put a name on there if this data sheet is swapping out every month and the instruction sheet is staying put. So let's talk about the data sheet for a minute, because H7 says that we're going to make data-based decisions about the effectiveness of the intervention and when we need to modify it. So for Jessica, these are the days of the month. So the 1st through the 15th, and then down here are the 16th through the 31st. And I believe they said they were going to take data 4 days a week, not on weekends. And so I believe this color coding was because let's just say March, whatever was a Friday, March 1st looks like it was a Friday, no data on Saturday and Sunday. And then these are the days of the week, and they have to train at least 4 days in that color-coded box section. So again, if it's helpful to staff and we want Monday through Friday, let's put as much structure on the data plan, the data page, to help them know where and when to take data. And then I want to know what we're working on. So they should fill this out, right? We're going to work on ball. We're going to work on goldfish that she wants to eat. We're going to work on tablet. We're going to work on outside. We're going to work on doll. I don't know, whatever. So in those pictures of 20, whatever the ones are that we're working on should be on this list, because this is how I'm going to track 4 consecutive sessions that I've addressed this with her, that it would be plus, 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 plus. There's no prompting in there. There's no minus in there. There's no 0 for there could be a non-opportunity. And then figuring out how you use this data sheet. So it also said, mark the number of times that she requests the item. So in my mind, this is a confusing data sheet. So let me tell you why. Hey, wow, oh, she's reaching for my ball. And I go, do you want the ball? And help her point to the ball and give her the ball. Yay. A few minutes later, she comes over towards the table and she's reaching towards the ball that I happen to have. And I go, you want the ball? And get her to point to my picture of the ball. Yay, she does the ball. That's number two. Third time around, she's reaching for my ball. And I go, oh, do you want ball? And she won't point. And so now I'm having to prompt her and say, ball, and help her touch the ball. Now I have two independent or two what I would call a plus per this protocol. I show her the card, she points to the card, she got the ball independently, and one prompted. So if today's August 1st, I would have to do a 2 plus, and I would have to do a 1 prompted. Not enough space in this data sheet for this. So that's one way that this data sheet could be used if you want all of that information. A second way that the data sheet could be used, she likes my star, right? We like the squishy star, squishy, 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 squishy. And I've got my stuff sitting out on the table over here. And she comes over and looks like she's reaching for my star. And I go, oh, do you want the star? And she touches my picture. I give her the star. We call it first trial data. So yes, I'm going to address the star as many times as she wants it, but I'm only going to take data, and she would simply get a plus here, that the first response of the day was independent for star. Yay, nice job. I can justify both ways of taking data. I can tell you the pros and cons of both ways. On the ball, was the prompt related to fatigue, satiation? She didn't really want it. Was sometimes there's a training artifact. So the more that she's trained throughout the day, the better she gets at it, and she learns my process throughout the day. So initially there might be a lot of prompts, and by latter trials, she's doing this totally independently. And so now you're aggregating all of that data. So the first trial of the day tells you truly how fluent this kiddo is. Can she walk up and say, star, and get the star? So my first trial data gives me that. First trial of the day data may also be easier on resources, paras, parents, staff who are trying to keep eyes on 3 individuals who are living together as housemates. And how in the world am I supposed to take 25 data points all the time? But whatever it is that you choose, it should be consistent between the top of your thing up here that says, write down how many times with the prompter independent, or do I simply want first trial of the day and a plus or minus is okay? And that's a good place to collaborate with the others and see what everybody is able to do and maintain. So the last thing that is a necessary part of our protocol is the key for your data. Now, yes, I know it's written up above in that scripted section, but I'm taking my data down here. And so again, if I'm trying to do ball, fish, and whatever, and yes, she did it independently, it's nice when I can look down here, quick, easy, viewable, and I can just put a plus, or I can just put, that didn't give you a plus, or I can give a prompted, or I can give no opportunity today. And it's simple. And again, my fidelity is more likely to be high when people don't have to remember things. Okay, so hopefully, as I went through our protocol, took a little longer than I wanted it to. But as I went through that, then you were thinking about your goal and your client so that when you come to group next week, we'll be able to go through the processes of filling out who's your person, what's the goal, what materials do you need, how do you want to take the data, how many days, where and when should this be trained, what are the steps, are there any cultural, trauma-informed, assent considerations, how do we prevent relapse and handle if we have to use reactive strategies, and how do we collaborate with others and take all of our data. So that's what we're going to do in group. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you soon.